Does the thought of sitting down to write a blog post fill you with dread and please anything but this thoughts? And maybe you can think of a few times when you sat down to write something and it was easy in comparison. Words were flying faster than your fingers could hit those keys on your keyboard, and you ended up with something you really, really loved. But recreating that experience consistently isn't happening. If that's you, you're going to love this week's video where I'm taking you step by step through my personal process for. Welcome back to Your Content Empire, the YouTube channel dedicated to helping you get more consistent and profitable with your content the easy way. I'm your host, Haley Dale, a content and sales funnel strategist obsessed with bringing you all the latest and greatest in content and marketing. Maybe you can think of just about 100 things you'd rather be doing than creating a blog post right now. Maybe just about anything is better. But there might be those times when you sit down to write and things just flow, but that feels like more of a matter of luck than any guaranteed thing. And maybe you think that blogging is just supposed to feel like this, hard and sloggy. But let's back it up. Likely, if you're watching this video or even this channel, I don't need to convince you that content and blogging is important. You know all the reasons why, like traffic back to your website, establishing yourself as an expert, developing your knowledge bank, and priming your audience to buy and more. But there's a big difference between knowing it's important and knowing how to do it. I haven't found a lot of people talking about the actual how, which is exactly what we're breaking down in this video. So if you're ready for a challenge, trust me, it'll be fun. Pick one topic from your calendar and open up a Word doc in a separate window and play along with me. You can pause this video at any time when you need to, and you'll end this video with not just great tips on how to write a blog post, but a blog post that you can take and use and publish as well. And if you can't think of a topic, how about something simple? Why? Your area of expertise, add it here, is important for the audience you serve, add it here. Here are some examples, like why content marketing is important for online business owners. It's a little basic, but it'll get the job done in a pinch. Ready for step number one? Step number one, free write for 10 minutes. The first thing we want to do is spend a short amount of time getting your initial ideas out of your head and onto paper or digital paper in most cases around this topic. The time you spend here will pay off when it comes to finding your angle for the post and getting out your ideas. The last thing you want to do is say something that everyone else is saying. So as soon as I have my topic on my content calendar, I'll set a timer and write some quick, whatever comes to mind notes on the topic so that when it's time to actually write it, I'm never starting from scratch. Here is an example for you of what the finished free writing will look like. And it's about to get a whole lot meta because this is my free writing for this very video script. And you can see all of the grammatical rules flew out the window, and it was more about getting those down, those initial ideas. So for yourself, here's how to complete this step. Number one, start with the topic or working title. Number two, set a timer for 10 minutes. You can experiment with this timing and just write down anything that comes to mind to you about that topic. It could be examples, stories, points you want to make sure to mention, even stats or quotes that you know you've seen before, but you have to just add yourself a reminder to go back and grab them. There's no point in editing or filtering yourself at this point because we just are making notes for yourself. After that, you can set it aside for when you're ready to actually create it or move on to the next step. So if you're playing along with me, pause the video, set that 10-minute timer, and free write your initial thoughts on the topic or working title for your practice post. Step number two, create your outline. After you have your free writing, it's time to design the structure of your post using your free writing as a jumping off point. Just a note here, there are a million ways you can structure your blog post. So I'm going to go over the simplest structure. The whole point of this step, though, is to create a high level outline of the post so you can just start filling out using words. Here's an example of what my outline looks like. As you can see, it's quite long, but that's because for me, the trick is starting. I resist sitting down and writing something, but once I'm there, I throw myself happily into the process. The best structure to start with is simple. So it only contains an intro, 3 to 5 steps or points, plus a conclusion. So if you're going to go with this one, start with your main steps or points. What is the working title of the step? Why does it matter? And do you have a story or example of the action and then also the how of it in action? Number two, add your introduction. How does your audience currently feel about the topic? Why does it matter to them? And what are they going to learn or discover from reading or watching your post? Number three, add your conclusion. So summarize the steps that you've covered, remind them why it matters, and tell them the difference that it can make to them in their life or their business, and then include a final call to action. Major tip here, you can either keep the bullet points here or write down whatever comes to mind. I'll be honest, for me, I usually end up writing most of the post in this step or taking bits of my free writing and copying and pasting it over. If you're writing along with me, pause this video and create your outline, starting with the main steps and points, moving on to the introduction, and finishing up with the conclusion. Step number three, write your post. Luckily, by this point, if you've been following along, you already have done a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's the key to this. The more time you spend in steps one and two, the quicker and easier the rest of the process will go. So when we get to this step, writing your post, it's going to look a little different depending on how much of the work you've already done from the earlier steps. Here's the most important thing to know about this step: what you write can be horrible, terrible, and something that you'd never let see the light of day. This is the epitome of the crappy first draft. So try to embrace it and know that through the editing process coming up next, that will help you polish this rough diamond into something that you're happy to share. So here's the process to create this crappy first draft step. One, open up a Word doc and copy and paste over your outline. Two, then we're going to go section by section. And for each of that, set a timer for 10 minutes and just flesh out or write the section. Repeat until you're finished. A little tip here: in terms of finishing out each section, you have options. You could write it or even speak it, record yourself, and have it transcribed. I have a video about our content interview process right here that you can check out, and I'll also link it below this video. Step number four, it's time for editing. Now is where the magic comes in. No matter how terrible your draft is, this four-phase editing process will turn it into something that you can't wait to publish. It's the same process that I use for everything I create personally, as well as for clients in the agency for our funnel projects and on demand content creation. Here are the four phases to this magical editing process. Phase number one is to edit for clarity. So, in this phase, you're going to read through your entire post, rewrite sections, and edit here and there to make sure it makes sense. The spelling and grammar are on point, and each section flows logically from one to the next. You can also run it through Grammarly here to pick up anything you're missing. Phase two, edit for personality. Next, read through each section and sprinkle in that personality and brand voice. I find it really helpful to read my brand voice guidelines or customer profile before doing this editing pass. Phase number three, edit for formatting. Writing an essay and writing for online are two completely different ball games. So in this pass, you're going to be writing, you're going to be going through your writing and proofing it for online reading. So you want to be breaking up your writing into shorter sentences and paragraphs, adding in bullet points, subheaders, anything that makes it easy for people to scan and read. Finally, I want you to put it aside for at least an hour, but ideally more like a day, and then do your final pass, which is phase number four, and reading through one final time for anything you want adjusted and anything that still needs changing. That brings us to step number five, which is to write your headline. So then we get to our final step, the headline. So you can have the best blog post in the world that doesn't get read because the headline isn't something that people want to click on. So it's crucial that we turn your working title into something that makes people click through and read it. We want to hit on curiosity, what's in it for them, or benefits, or make use of that element of surprise. So when you're coming up with your headline, here are a few steps. Step one, write at least 5 options. Here are a couple of my go to headline recipes. Recipe number one is the butt buster. So, in this one, you're taking a benefit that they'll get from taking action or learning about the topic of your blog post, minus a potential objection. It's framed like this: how to benefit without objection, or how to benefit even if objection. I've used this one before in this headline: how to make 10K with a cash injection campaign, even if you have a tiny email list. Brings us to recipe number two, the leading question. In this recipe, you're turning a benefit or frustration related to the topic in the post and phrasing it as a question. Are you ready to finally benefit? Or are you ready? Are you over? Are you sick of? Are you tired of? Frustration. Here's my example that I've used. Are you sick and tired of launching to crickets? Once you have five potential options, you're ready for step number two, which is to pick the most promising one. Finally, step number three, make it even better. So go ahead and use a headline analyzer and follow the recommendations until you're in the high scores. I'll put a link to my favorite one below, the co-schedule headline analyzer, in the description. So pause this video and go and get your headlines ready. So, if you've been playing along with me, not only have you learned my step by step build a blog process, but hopefully you also have something that you're ready to publish too. But just in case you're going to try this later, let's recap the steps. Step one, free writing on the topic. Step two, create your outline. Step three, write your post. Step four, use my four-phase editing process. Step five, write a clickable headline. So happy blogging, and make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be the first to know when the next video goes live, hint, it's Mondays, make sure to ring that bell. And until next time, here's to your content empire.